Jaime's story is filled with references and foreshadowing for him being bittersteel reborn. When we first get introduced to him, Jaime was wearing black and crimson clothes instead of white of the King's Guard. Sir Jaime Lannister was twin to Queen Cersei, tall and golden, with flashing green eyes and a smile that cut like a knife. He wore crimson silk, high black boots, a black satin cloak. On the breast of his tunic, the lion of his house was embroidered in gold thread, roaring its defiance. While he famously walks around wearing a visual representation to the Golden Company's war cry, beneath the gold, the bitter steel. If ever truly a man had armored himself in gold, it was Peter Baelish, not Jaime Lannister. Jaime's famous armor was but gilded steel, but Littlefinger. Tyrion had learned a few things about Sweet Peter to his growing disquiet. After escaping Robb Stark and River Run, Jaime fight Catelyn Stark's sworn sword by using a longsword, but he uses and describes it in the same way bastard swords are typically used and described as. Jaime's blood was singing. This was what he was meant for. He never felt so alive as when he was fighting, with death balanced on every stroke. And with my wrists chained together, the wench may even give me a contest for a time. His chains forced him to use a two-handed grip, though of course the weight and reach were less than if the blade had been a true two-handed greatsword. But what did it matter? His cousin's sword was long enough to write an end to this Brienne of Tarth. After the fight, Jaime thinks they made enough noise to wake a dragon. Armed men lined both sides of the brook. Small wonder we were making enough noise to wake a dragon. When the mummers told Jaime they have turned their clock, Jaime's reaction was, Eriswick spread his hands. What Timian means to say is that the brave companions are no longer in the hire of House Lannister. We now serve Lord Bolton and the king in the north. Jaime gave him a cold, contemptuous smile, and may say I have shit for honor, implying that he never turned his clock. The brave companions cut off Jaime's hand, the one that killed the king, the same punishment for anyone who lays a hand on a member of the royal family. The brave companions are used to represent all three Targaryen heirs. The Dornishman and Qyburn are references for Aegon being half Dornish and his half-maester. The Dothraki is a reference for Dany, and Rourke is connected to Arya and she's connected to Jon. After losing his hand, Jaime have a dream next to a weirwood stump, where the Lannisters are forcing him to go down to a dark and terrible place. In the dream, Brienne asks him, what are they keeping under the rock? Do they keep a bear down here? Brienne was moving, slow and wary, sword to hand. Step, turn and listen. Each step made a little splash. A cave lion, direwolves, some bear. Tell me, Jaime, what lives here? What lives in the darkness? Doom. No bear, he knew. No lion, only doom. And Jaime's answer is, it's not a bear nor a lion, only doom, implying that it's a direwolf. While he's holding a lightbringer and thinking of the water being cold and things are living in it. A foreshadowing for the message Jon will receive in dance about dead things in the water. As he raised the sword, a finger of pale flame flickered at the point and crept up along the edge, stopping a hand's breadth from the hilt. The fire took on the color of the steel itself, so it burned with a silvery blue light, and the gloom pulled back. Crouching, listening, Jaime moved in a circle, ready for anything that might come out of the darkness. The water flowed into his boots, ankle-deep and bitterly cold. Beware the water, he told himself. There may be creatures living in its hidden deeps. In the dream, Jaime mistakes Rhaegar Targaryen with Ned Stark. And when he realizes who is he facing, Jaime tries to justify his action. He justified killing the king, but he couldn't justify the murder of the children. The Desteries emerged from the blackness at a slow walk. They made no sound, Jaime realized. No splashing, no clink of mail, no chop of hoof. He remembered Eddard Stark, riding the length of Aerys' throne room, wrapped in silence. Only his eyes had spoken, a lord's eyes, cold and grey and full of judgment. Is it you, Stark? Jaime called. Come ahead. I never feared you living. I don't fear you dead. After waking up, he thinks that they are all dead, while the dream is filled with references to Jon and the others. The cold grey eyes, full of judgment, is a reference to the question, how much does the dead remember? The cold light burning is a reference to the others, and the mistake between Rhaegar Targaryen and Ned Stark is a reference to Jon's parentage. Prince Rhaegar burned with a cold light, now white, now red, now dark. I left my wife and children in your hands. After reaching King's Landing, Jaime thinks that he never paid much attention to Arya Stark, someone who was in front of him the whole time he was in Winterfell. Jaime had never paid much attention to Arya Stark, but it seemed to him that this girl was older. I understand you are to be married. While Jon was kept out of sight. I glimpsed him once at Winterfell, the queen said, though the Starks did their best to hide him. And it's not like Jaime to care enough about Ned Stark's bastard to look for him. Jaime is one of few characters who was close enough to the Targaryens who might recognize Jon's parentage without being told. Ice being reforged is a metaphor for two things. Firstly, it's a metaphor for Jon, a Stark sword that was taken away from Winterfell and turned into the Targaryen colors, or into Mance's colors. Ice is the sword Jon wanted his whole life, and it was given to Jaime, one of few characters in the South that think about Jon Snow. The second thing the sword is a metaphor for is who holds the Iron Throne. Ned Stark won the throne for Robert. It was the Stark-Arryn Tully alliances that actually won the throne. The Lannisters are trying to keep Joffrey and Tommen Baratheon on the throne after killing Ned Stark, and they have reforged the Stark Greatsword into two smaller ones. Lannister and Tyrell, the Great Southern Alliance. Yet regardless of how much they have tried to turn the sword into Lannister colors, it always goes back to black and blood red, the Targaryen colors. Blood and black, the ripples shone. A finger of reflected light ran red along the edge. Is it Valyrian steel? I have never seen such colors. There are also references for Jaime fighting fire whites instead of the others. In his dreams, the dead came burning, gowned in a swirling green flames. Jaime danced around them with a golden sword, but for everyone he struck down, two more arose to take his place. Also, Jaime will want to kill Stannis and anyone who will support him or associated with him, thus the Red God and all of his followers. Your oaths are worthless. You swore an oath to Aerys. You haven't cooked anyone in their armor, so far as I know. And we both want me safe and whole on King's Landing, don't we? While both Jon and Arya give us their thought about the Night's Watch, the Night's Watch is no man's enemy, and the Night's Watch is no man's friend. While thinking of House Lawson, Jaime Lannister gives us the best quote in the book that applies to the Night's Watch, and it's covered with Arya's vibe. The Lostons held Harrenhal before the Wents, and had been a powerful family in their day, but they had died out ages ago, so no one was likely to object to him bearing their arms. He would be no one's cousin, no one's enemy, no one's sworn sword, in sum, no one.